How we doing, everyone? I'm Alec McChesney. I'm with Ron Powell, the Journal-Star's high school football, all things high school expert. We're here to talk to you as we enter week 6 of the high school football season. A lot of up and down games, a lot of exciting games through the first 5 weeks. We're going to take a look at Class A and Class B. Let's start with Class A. What have you seen so far? Who are the top teams? And just give us your information.
Well, first of all, welcome, Alec, to the Lincoln Journal-Star.
Absolutely.
Alec's been working for us for about a month now.
Right.
Doing a great job, so
thank you.
He's going to step in and do videos.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah.
Omaha Burke started the season #1 in Class A, and they have played right to that role.
Right.
They've been dominant this season. They have 2 Husker recruits.
Right.
Nick Heinrich, I almost called him Mike. Mike's his dad, and Chris Hickman.
Right.
Heinrich is just a great linebacker.
Absolutely.
Motor that never stops. And Chris Hickman, he's got great potential at the next level as a tight end and defensive end. But, they have other players around them.
Right.
Tyler Chadwick's a 3-year starter at quarterback. James Burks rushed for almost 2,000 yards last year, and, he's one of the top running backs in the state.
Right.
Xavier Watts, a wide receiver. He can do a lot of things. He's a dual sport guy.
Right.
So they have a lot of pieces around those 2 stars.
Right. So right now they're looking like the clear favorite even after 5 weeks?
I think they're the clear favorite right now. You have some other undefeated teams. Bellevue West, for instance, has 2 guys who are high-level Power 5 conference type recruits. Xavier Betts, junior wide receiver, he's been offered by Nebraska.
Right.
Jay Ducker, a running back, he's got offers from several Big Ten schools,
right.
Purdue, for instance, and he showed a lot against Pius last week that, he's one of the top players. So, Bellevue West has enough guys in those star positions to maybe challenge Burke.
Right.
And then, of course, Grand Island's undefeated.
Right.
They have been very, very impressive, just both sides of the ball so far. Cole Evans, their quarterback, seems to be a guy who can, just kind of go out there and get the job done. He's a great baseball recruit, so a multi-sport guy.
Right.
Omaha West Side is undefeated as well, and they've got Avante Dickerson, sophomore speedster. A lot of people expect Nebraska to offer him a scholarship here in the future.
Right, so obviously this is a class where the top 4 teams are undefeated right now, correct?
Oh, yes.
But you still have a couple of other teams that are looking pretty quality. You've got Lincoln High and Lincoln Pius. Obviously, they've kind of been in there. They're both in your rankings still as well, too.
Oh, yeah. Lincoln High, tough start to the season with such a tough schedule. They opened with Bellevue West, Grand Island.
Right.
Then they beat Creighton Prep. They've won their last 3
right.
and beat Pius.
Right.
And then Omaha Central last week. They seem to be rolling pretty good now, and they're a team that could definitely contend at the top there.
Right, and just like Class A, Class B has a couple undefeated teams at the top too. I believe they're the top 3 right now, and your ratings are all undefeated.
All undefeated, but the favorite may still be number 4, York,
right.
who was the defending state champion, lost back-to-back weeks to McCook
right.
and Omaha Skutt, and those games were extremely competitive.
Right.
York has the Nebraska recruit, Garrett Snodgrass. Brady Danielson's a super stater, defensive back, wide receiver. They've got a lot of pieces there. And, of course, McCook is number 1 right now because they beat York on their home field first. DJ Gross, all-state linebacker, kind of leads the way there.
Right.
Then you've got Omaha Skutt. Their ground game against York was very impressive. Right. Jared Epperson is a quality back. They've got a style of football that's going to work well in November.
Right.
And then, of course, Scotts Bluff has Garrett Nelson, who is, I think he's going to come down to Nebraska and be a factor right away as a freshman.
Right, so outside of those top 4 or 5, is there anyone else that's a contender to kind of make a push here in the last 5 weeks?
Well, Waverly has won 5 straight here, or 4 straight.
Right.
They lost week 1 to Seward,
right.
and their ground game is very impressive. They will play Omaha Skutt here in another week. They don't play them this week, it's next week.
Okay.
And that game's going to probably tell a lot of how Waverly compares with those top 4 teams.
Absolutely. Obviously, a lot of good competition left for these next few weeks. I know this week you're kind of looking at a couple different games that maybe aren't as high profile as have been in recent weeks, but hopefully in the next few weeks you'll get a couple of those big ones, where some of the top teams actually get to collide a little bit, right?
And then, C1, Pierce is #1 right now.
Right.
Based on that very, very impressive performance, the win over Norfolk Catholic in week 1.
Right.
Norfolk Catholic was the defending C1 champion. They dropped down to C2. Pierce had 3 players who rushed for over 100 yards in that game.
Wow.
Dalton Freeman, Brett Tinker, and Carson Ostrich all over 100 yards.
Wow.
That tells me that's a style that's going to work well when the weather gets cold in November and playoff time.
Right.
And then, of course, Aurora has Baylor Shireman, who, he's a South Dakota State basketball recruit, but boy, I bet the football team would love to have him.
Right.
I mean, he's been breaking records all over the place as a 6'6" left-handed quarterback.
Right.
He can flat out throw the ball.
Right. And you're talking about weather in November. We're going to get a glimpse of that this Friday. I think the high is 60 with a low of 44 and some rain. So you're going to start to see that kind of take effect as we go forward here. So
yeah, and Norfolk Catholic at the end of last year, when the weather turned cold, their defense was very good. I mean, no one penetrated it. And I could see that happening again as the season goes on here. Of course, they have 2 of the best players in the state, regardless of class.
Right.
Ethan Piper's a Nebraska recruit, lineman, defensive tackle, offensive tackle. And then, of course, they have Dylan Kotz, who is the fastest high school athlete in the state.
Right.
So, the sprint champion.
So when you have athletes like that, you've always got a chance, right?
Oh, exactly.
Good.
And moving down to C2, I think they're definitely the team to beat. Although they're Centennial, they have not lost a regular season game in 3 seasons. They were undefeated in the regular season 2 years ago, undefeated last year on their way to the state finals, and so far they've gotten through undefeated. They have a very tough district too.
Right. It's kind of weird how fast this high school football season is going, and we're sorry that we're just joining you now after week 5, but my late appearance is kind of the reason for that. But we'll be back next week all the way through the whole high school football season. Anything else from you, Ron?
Well, I was just going to mention the 3 teams that started at the top of D1, D2, and 6-man, BDS, Johnson Brock, Harvard, they're still there.
All right.
They're still undefeated.
Still undefeated. It's a good way to start the season. See if they finish that way. That'll do it for us. Have a great day.